Sometimes, the best stories are the most compact. They dive into the essence of something to reveal the most with the least amount of flourish. Join Lisa Olson from the Heart of La Crosse comedy troupe as she explores some of the unique sagas and yarns in our own backyard with 10-minute tales from Bluff country. Dakota, Minnesota is a sleepy little town that cozies right up to the Mississippi River in southeastern Minnesota. Like the river, the town meanders at its own pace, comfortable with the history it's had and the direction it's going. This is the story of how one woman created one of the only businesses in town through loss, happenstance, and ironically, having the same sanguine mindset as her neighbors. The key difference is, her frame of mind is rooted in an ancient world half a globe away, proving perhaps that people really aren't all that different. This is the story of Kim Hammer and her shop, Sutra Global Imports.
What were you going to be when you grew up?
Wasn't this? I had no idea of. Actually, although there was that little shop I started in the neighborhood on Bryce Prairie, and my friend's stepdad had like these little cottages, and I think we actually started a teeny tiny little shop in one of the cottages. On Bryce Prairie.
What did you sell?
I think it was all handmade things. I haven't thought about this in 1,500 years.
I met you about 300 years ago as a fabulous massage therapist.
Yes, that was my main career for a long, long time, about 20 years. I was a pioneering massage therapist in La Crosse when we were still fingerprinted.
And so the history that took you from massage therapist to this world.
I was ready to do something different. The big life change that happened is my partner died of ovarian cancer, and I was sort of thrust into like, who am I? What am I doing? And I have this philosophy that if something like horrific happens, if you can't transform yourself into something remarkable, then why did it happen? In one moment I said, but what I really want is, and it had to do with handmade travel and a kind of a social consciousness, something fair trade. Cashed in my life insurance policy. I don't have children, So I went to Java and Bali and then one other island, Lombok Island in Indonesia. I had always wanted to go because they say like everybody in Bali, almost everybody is an artist in some way. And it's really true. So by the time that trip was done, this was maybe 3 weeks or so, I was just like, of course, so I sold my farmhouse in the country. I knew I didn't want to live there forever. And I did what I think now is kind of an internship. I thought I was going to be, living and working there a lot longer, but it wasn't a good fit that way. And so wanted to create my own things. Didn't have a shop in mind. I didn't know how I was going to sell the stuff. I just knew I wanted to have to travel and I wanted to include art in some way.
This room is incredible. How did you even come to find this space or to own it?
Well, the true story is that I was...
The true story. That's interesting. Can we start with a fake one?
What would be the fake story? Let's see.
It was a dark and stormy night.
And a maid screamed. Is that how it goes?
And there was a knock at the door.
Yes.
And
bump, 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 bump.
There you were at the door.
There I was. Actually, I was driving down the highway from Minneapolis, I think, with a friend, and we had to go to the bathroom. And so we pulled off to find some farmyard, and there was a little sign that said house for sale. And I said, let's check it out. I wasn't thinking about buying a house. I wasn't in the market, and we turned the corner, and this barn appeared overhead with the beautiful white windows and the peak. And I looked up, and actually my first thought was, I could never afford this. That was my first thought. I was just entranced with it. I thought it was so beautiful. The woman who had it before me had put in all these beautiful white windows. It's the original tin barn on the outside. It's a century barn, so it's over 100 years old. It was the horse barn for the post office. See, now I'm getting at the real stories. So I started looking at it, and I had no idea the level of infrastructure required to make this habitable in the summertime. It's sort of like that hot and cold running water joke. It's hot in the summer and cold in the winter. That's this place. So I've had a lot of help from friends, but we've created a lovely space, I think. So
So
that was how we
every
found
time
it.
you use the bathroom here, do you think of that? Did you get to go to the bathroom? I just want to know.
Do you know Lois Peterson? That's who owned it before me. I think the man before Lois shoveled out all the hay and all that kind of stuff. But I think Lois put in the windows and did all this painting. She installed this loft over here. Men especially love to come up here because it's so incredible. You know, the whole piece about the name actually, Sutra means thread, and it is about that thread of connection as well as the literal threads of weaving or dyeing or whatever. So
It's great to have an online shop, but to be here in person, and the first day I came in here, I told you, I'm going to touch everything. So
I told you I do charge a fondling fee.
Yes, and I'm glad I brought my credit card.
Fondle away then.
The different things you can find here are just incredible.
I try to find that balance between selecting things that I think are spiritually oriented or beautiful with things that I think people in America will relate to. That is a teak root ball, I would say, or a teak root, something from teak. And the containers were heated and then set down in here. So they actually burned the wood a little bit, but it makes the glass containers sit perfectly on there. So I think what people will do with these, I've seen bigger ones where they've put fish, but these are fairly small, so they maybe a terrarium or even like a cutting to grow roots on a plant. Like you could fill them with water and put cuttings in there.
When Mason and I were here and we bought the flying frogs, we wanted matching flying frogs for protection.
So
It was so great.
You know, because they can live on the land and in water, there's certain like shamanic kind of properties to animals like that where they're kind of magical because they have that capacity, or that they change from being water animals to land, and then they're water and land both. And
That's true.
I think they are so charming.
The travel part of it is very intriguing. Is it always to get items, or are you doing things when you're visiting? Explain the travel part.
Sure. That kind of evolved, but right away I knew I wanted to lead tours. I assisted with the tour, and I thought, I like this, you know. I love bringing people together. I mean,
Yes.
that's the first thing I think about is like, oh, maybe I have somebody I can tell you their story is cool too. You know, there have been years when maybe I only had 3 travelers or 2 travelers or 4, you know, but I want to lead small groups. I don't want anything remotely like a bus. So it is very personalized. This year I actually have 9 people signed up for 2 tours. So it's really growing, and there's actually a couple of other women debating on it. So we'll see. It might even be beyond that.
What about new goals, or how long do you think you're here? I know you're doing workshops.
Yes. So the workshops have been really fun because I initially started them. They're a combination of, I would say, maker kind of workshops, learning how to dye with indigo or making hand quilting or something like that, block printing, which is an Indian art form. But I've also kind of now grown into doing workshops on psychic development, intuition development. And the most interesting thing to me was I started having authors do book readings, which I thought was going to be a little dry and boring. And they were really wonderful and fun and interesting. And the sharing of ideas and how the creative process works, I love that.
This is not just a shop, it's an experience.
It's an experience. It's kind of like stepping into another world, I say. I really have tried to do the decor in such a way that people feel like they're coming into a market in India, and there's a lot of, saris hanging from the ceiling and so forth. So it's been a really fun venue to put together.
We would be remiss if we didn't mention that Kim's shop is closed for the winter. A barn without heat is not a place to sell items from the tropics. In May, however, she'll be here again, right behind a newly renovated counter, sharing the history of her goods and offering some of the most unusual and beautiful items to anyone with a sense of adventure and whimsy. Our thanks to Kim for sharing a bit of her story with us and with you. And if you have an unusual or interesting story, please drop me an email at lisaolson@theheartoflacrosse.com. I'm Lisa Olson. Join us next time on 10 Minute Tales from Bluff Country.